it was like, all right, they won their division again. Yeah, they won 10 games, but it's another wild card exit, right? He tied Marvin Lewis now for 7 consecutive playoff losses. But I still don't think that's going to be enough for them to move on, because that's just the Steelers' way, right? That they don't get rid of these guys. It is similar to the Packers. And then the fact that he stepped down was like oh, damn.
Yeah.
You know, you have Rodgers coming out and speaking for him, Cam Hayward coming out and speaking for him. And I know Tree will be like, these guys are the problem, right? Because they're stuck back from where it was 10 years ago. But for him to step down it feels like I don't need this.
Yeah,
right?
it's a lot.
It felt like you want to kick Chris, fine. Bye.
There's I think we kind of forget the toll it takes to be a head coach in the NFL. Yeah.
And him stepping down means the Steelers still have his rights too. So
yes.
If he wanted to go coach somewhere, it would be like a Sean Payton kind of situation where the Steelers would trade him, right?
Yeah.
They'd be like, okay, then you could go and coach for whatever team you want.
I think there's a lot to unpack with Tomlin stepping away. I think just getting away from the game for a year, I think that's going to make Mike Tomlin's decision in terms of let's say next October, he's doing TV and he's just like, this is, there's not enough pressure here. I want to be out coaching games. I want to be in the locker room with players, with other coaches. And that's what Mike Tomlin was great at, right? He was a guy players liked playing for. They played hard for Mike Tomlin. Also a guy coaches liked coaching for. So you've got somebody that, people want to be around, and Steelers fans can be annoyed at the fact that they've been 10-7 the last 3 seasons and they lose in the playoffs. But that's an impressive accomplishment.
Sure.
And the Steelers, like a lot of other organizations, once Ben Roethlisberger retired, could not solve their quarterback vacancy, their hole there. And we pretend like it's easy to replace a freaking fringe Hall of Fame QB, whatever you want to call Big Ben. I think he's a Hall of Famer. I think that'll happen. You don't just replace that. I think the bigger question, if you're a Steelers fan, is how are they going to actually rebuild and retool the team? And you then have to understand, was it Mike Tomlin holding the team back in terms of rebuilding, in terms of stripping it down, or is that above him? Is that your general manager and how they make decisions to shape the roster? And you just look back at this last draft, they were in a spot to take Jackson Dart, and they went defensive line. And they took a great story, a guy who played very well for him this last season, but you needed a quarterback. They didn't think they needed a quarterback because they went in on Aaron Rodgers. So that's what, outside of obviously filling the role for Tomlin, it's how are they going to change their approach to building their team?
Yeah. So in terms of Tomlin, the problem is and this is where I've stood with Tomlin for a while. I think he's a great head coach.
Yeah.
I think he's a very good head coach that has dragged a lot of rosters to somehow get a winning record, right? Without their franchise QB, because you're 100% correct. After Big Ben, they never replaced, they never got their franchise guy again, right? It was Kenny Pickett. They threw around Mason Rudolph for a while, but they've been going around this QB carousel because the unfortunate side is, and you do get a little bit punished. The worst thing, Brandon, as we have said for years, that you could be in the NFL is average.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're picking in the middle of the first round, which is too late to go get your franchise quarterback unless you're making this huge move to trade up. And so because of that, they were never in a position to go and get that guy. You did mention they could have gotten Jackson Dart, right?
They could have.
I guess they did not believe in him enough, right? They're he wasn't high enough on their draft board, which then you can look at the GM and you kind of got to go all right, it's how you're constructing the roster.
Did they even study quarterbacks in the offseason?
I don't even know. But I think that the way, you're going to get punished for that success. And it's very impressive that he was able to do that. But I do agree. Like, Tree has talked about this. I think they just need to tear it down to the studs a little bit.
Yeah.
Like them going out and getting Aaron Rodgers is the ultimate definition of just, that's a stopgap, man. Like that's patchwork, because you have them for one season. And then after that season, what are you doing at quarterback?
Yeah.
Right. Because now you're in the same exact position. They won 10 games. They won the division. They lost again in the wild card. And you're going to be in a very similar situation where you're going to be picking in the first round. And it's like, oh, crap. And now we're not going to have Mike Tomlin. It just feels like they have to suck.
Yeah.
But they also, the thing that's confusing is they go and make a big time trade for DK Metcalf, right? They obviously get rid of George Pickens, but they go and get DK Metcalf. Now they don't really have anybody to throw them the ball. And they went out and got Jalen Ramsey, which is like, okay, like he's getting older too. And it just feels like the roster, it didn't look like they were going to be competing for a Super Bowl this year. It was going to be very difficult for them to go win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But they were making moves like they were a couple pieces away.
They went all in for their best outcome to be a single playoff victory. They put all their chips on the table for one dog to rule them all. DK also had a bad drop in that Texans game. And I think because they got their asses kicked so thoroughly on Monday night. And the problem with that is you brought in Aaron Rodgers and his experience to specifically, I think, mitigate that type of game. Mm-hmm. Like Rodgers isn't who he used to be, but you're like, we're going to bring Aaron Rodgers because when we play a team like the Texans, he's going to be able to make his adjustments at the line, put the team in the best chance to succeed, and get some offensive production.
Sure.
When a young quarterback would have crumbled in that situation.
Yeah.
Turns out he and that offense just crumbled regardless.
Correct.
Which is, why the Cardinals need Arthur Smith.
Of course. I mean, you saw how good that offense was. Yeah. Well, the problem is too, right? Like you're going up against an elite defense because like the Texans, I know we didn't even talk about the Monday game because we haven't seen each other, but right. Like that game is competitive for 3 quarters. The Texans constantly shoot themselves in the foot because they can't stop turning the ball over. Good God, the amount of fumbles that CJ Stroud had and then totally panicked and threw an interception in the red zone. Like it was an ugly game for that Texans offense, but then their defense was like, okay, we're done now. Strip sack for a touchdown, pick 6, right? It could be Aaron Rodgers' last throw as an NFL quarterback. And
why didn't you go back in the game?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, why don't you go back in the game? It's just, I don't know. It's honestly, it reminds me when the Titans decided to randomly sign DeAndre Hopkins a couple years ago. And it was like, do you guys think like you're one wide receiver away, like to go and compete? It just feels like they were doing that. The roster construction is, I mean, their defense is insanely expensive, dude. And they are just not getting the results like the Texans defense is getting, right? Yeah. And if you're putting that amount of money into that defense, which is supposed to be the strength of your team, that ain't it. Like Aaron Rodgers, like the only team that makes sense for him to go to at this point in his career is the Vikings, right? Because it's like, okay, you have the wide receivers that are there. You have this incredible defense. The Steelers don't have that incredible defense. They have a good defense. But they don't have that incredible defense. They don't have the star makers on that offense. And
Aaron Rodgers bringing Adam Thielen with him back to the Vikings.
God, yeah. The prophecy will eventually come to fruition.
Umasume? The other issue too, if you're going back, if I go back to that quarterback situation for the Steelers, we said Dart, but also Tyler Shuck, Tyler Shuck, because they did. I keep forgetting the Steelers did draft a quarterback. His name is Will Howard. They got Will Howard on the roster, and there might be something there. But right now, they had a chance. They could have taken 2 guys who looked very good this year. And honestly, Tyler Shuck's probably a better option in terms of, the way the Steelers typically, like to play football. But anyway, they missed there. And now it's the question becomes who's going to be the head coach that comes in and fills the void left by Mike Tomlin. So
this is actually, there's collusion that's going on the fact that there are teams that are asking to interview Arthur Smith are going to pressure the Steelers into making Arthur Smith their new head coach.
Yeah.
And you'll just see Steelers fans just take a long walk off a short pier because that would be tough. But yeah, I don't know. I think the Steelers, they have not sucked for a while. And it just feels like they need to suck, with the caveat that they're able to draft well due to the suckage, right?
Yes.
Like, because if they do all this and they start tanking and they start like playing some really bad football, which without Mike Tomlin, I think they're going to start playing some really bad football unless Will Howard is the guy. Then they have to be able to take advantage of that. It's the same thing as the Jets, man. The Jets are a freaking mess, but they have a ton of draft picks, right? So it's like, okay, it's great in theory that you have all this draft capital, but you got to hit on these picks. And do you have the front office? Do you have the leadership that is going to give you the confidence to go out and get those guys?
Yeah.